We are grateful to have a number of alumni and parents and former parents and members of our staff who served in the military. We have our Chinese teacher here this morning who recently became an American citizen. So this event is filled with important individuals and perspectives. I'd like to thank Will Norton for doing the lion's share of putting this together, Patrick Simpson for putting out flags on the campus commemorating this day, Angela Power who put the slideshow, about 80 slides behind me, of various alumni and friends of MBA who've been involved in the military. Of course, our students, the singers behind me and others who are part of this morning, and our music department, and our faculty and staff who've been involved in this program over the years, and of course, our graduate, Jameson Norton, who's going to share some words and thoughts with you later in the program. So join me now and welcome Will Norton as he makes some recognition.
We thought we'd start by standing and singing the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you. Please be seated. Well, I'm sure there are a few Rangers in the crowd, but for those who woke up and felt the cold this morning, we were glad that we've moved this ceremony inside, as we used to have this outside by Harding Road. Good morning. My name is Will Norton, and I have the privilege of working here at MBA. And it's humbling to come into this dining hall and eat lunch every day and see the names of the alumni on the walls. And it's especially humbling on Veterans Day to think of all those who have served in the MBA alumni family. And I encourage you to walk outside the library and see the headstones of those who have died in various conflicts where we have the flags set out and reflect on that this morning. And our time this morning is meant to just reflect in gratitude for those who served our nation's military and the veterans. And at MBA, we have the privilege of working with many young men who seek to serve our nation through the military. Many of the greeters this morning at the tables reflect that group. And these young men work to raise money for organizations like Operation Stand Down and Task Force Dagger and Wounded Warrior. And we send an intern every summer to Operation Stand Down to support their organization and the ongoing support of veterans throughout our city. I was with Cal Bryan this week as he interviewed for West Point. And Cal is going to make our concluding remarks for this ceremony, and it's an honor to work with such fine young men. Please raise your hand if you are a veteran of the United States military. Let's give this group a round of applause. Please raise your hand if you're a parent of somebody who's on active duty currently. Let's give this group a round of applause. And I don't think there is anybody here who's currently on active duty? Yeah, I didn't think so, but occasionally we have somebody come down from Fort Campbell or places like that. Well, great. Well, it's an honor to be with you all. We are now going to pause for a moment of silence with gratitude and remembrance as we reflect on the countless sacrifices of our military and the veterans. And the moment of silence will conclude with the playing of taps, which will be followed by, the taps is going to be played by Jack Clark. And then that will be followed by the Band of Brothers theme song sung by the NBA Headmaster Singers. Good morning. My name is Patrick Simpson. I currently work here at MBA and am grateful to be a veteran of the military. Today, we're honored to have an MBA alum and an outstanding American, Major Jamison Norton, here to share his insights and reflections on military service. We're also very fortunate to have his wife, Anna, here for this special ceremony. Together, Jamison and Anna have 2 children, Jamison and Claire. After graduating from MBA in 2002, Jamison Norton was commissioned as a Marine infantry officer from the University of Virginia. He has served with the Marines for over a decade, deploying to the Philippines and the Middle East with the Marine Expeditionary Unit. While still a member of the Marine Corps Reserve, Jamison currently serves as the CEO of the Vanderbilt Psychiatric Hospital. In this position, he's worked with active duty service members and veterans, helping those that struggle with trauma and post-traumatic stress. He also remains active in the Men of Valor program, through which he mentors at-risk youth who are the sons of inmates. Having wrestled with Jamison during our time at MBA, I know what a tough warrior he is. Not only have I always admired his toughness, though, I've always been so inspired by his humility and selfless service to others, especially to those in the military. I consider Jamison a great friend, and I'm sure that many who meet him do. Please join me in welcoming back to MBA, Major Jamison Norton.
Thank you, Patrick. It is an honor to be here. I want to just thank everyone for being here as a community. This is a special day. I want to say happy birthday to all the Marines out there. And I want to just thank you for your service, all of you who have served in this room. And what's special to me is the fact, how many in this room have mentored, inspired, supported, sacrificed for me on my journey as a veteran. This is a special group and a community, and so thank you for being here for each other. I want to give a special thanks to Coach Frank Simpson. I told him I was going to say this, but the man who taught me how to wrestle. And actually in the Marines, we have a time-honored tradition in the infantry officer course, and we decide what duty station we're going to go to by ground fighting. Ground fighting is similar to wrestling, but you go until somebody taps out instead of pinning. And so we had kind of a winner-take-all. Obviously, we're fighting our hearts out for that one position, or two, a couple positions at Camp Pendleton, California, just north of San Diego. And I want to thank Coach Simpson for 2 things. One, my duty station, so that representing our NBA wrestling team out there. And 2, for making it a lot easier for Anna to say yes 1 month later when I proposed to her. I can just picture myself saying, Anna, will you marry me? And by the way, we're going to go to 29 Palms, California in the Mojave Desert. So I see that being a little bit more of a challenge, so thank you. So I wanted to share just a little bit about my background. And it really started right here at MBA. 9/11 hit my senior year, and I was actually in Mr. Joy's English class when it happened. A foundational moment for many of us, but generationally, it was a call to action for me. And for me, doubly so, because my brother Will had already committed to the Army, and during that time, he was already going that route. And for me, being in a time of war, it meant that much more. And so did the ROTC program at the University of Virginia and became an infantry officer. And at the age of 22, very quickly found myself face-to-face with 50 combat-hardened Marines. That experience was foundational for me. I'll never forget it. And many have asked friends and peers what the experience was like of leading a hospital for the first time as a CEO. And I'll tell you, it was not too unfamiliar. The experience of getting in front of a group of Marines, the responsibility, the accountability, the humility, and knowing that we're never prepared for that moment. but the passion and the commitment, it is a special feeling that I'll never forget. We went on to go to a deployment, and 2 deployments after that, Marine Expeditionary Units, where you become a 911 force for that certain region of the world. For the first one was Pacific Command in the Southeast Asia. Second one was Central Command, CENTCOM. I won't spend a lot of time on those. I really want to focus on some of the time after the Marines. And actually, after the infantry moved on to become a recruiting management for the state of Tennessee, North Alabama, North Mississippi. So only in the military you go from being a grunt to leading sales somehow across 53,000 square miles and 37 facilities across that area, putting 2,000 new Marines into the service as high school students, or right out of high school. And that experience, that versatility is something that we are all as veterans used to. It's not unfamiliar. And then after active duty, transitioned to go to Owen, the MBA program at Vanderbilt. Went to the reserves and continued to serve in the reserves. But it was that time at Owen that I truly appreciated the unique qualities of our veterans and wanted to share some of those insights, because right now, and I'm very blessed to say this, our MBA programs and our business schools are targeting our veterans for a unique reason. Part of that is because employers want them to be part of great teams and to lead great organizations. But there's certain unique qualities that our veterans have been able to demonstrate and to train to, and I wanted to share some of those reflections. The first is commitment, that idea of being completely mission-focused. And the idea of grit comes up. Many of you may have read the book Grit by Angela Duckworth. But what she does is talk about, she figures out what it is that makes people quit versus when they don't quit. And on paper, 2 people that may be very similar, what that difference factor is. And she creates an equation that's composed basically of passion and perseverance. But what she comes up with is it's not just about talent. In fact, talent times effort equals skill. And then skill times effort equals accomplishment. And she finds that effort counts twice in that equation. And you can imagine that our military, that effort is something that we have in high regard. We also have that 80% solution. In that MBA program, it was very stark. Those who had served in the military really appreciated this and understood how to do this in a different way than the others had, because of the experience, the training that we have to be able to make decisions in a fluid environment and that is uncertain and dynamic and requires us to be in that uncomfortable position where we are uncertain. And that idea of dealing with ambiguity is a challenge, it's a vulnerability among those who have not served. It's something that we can do a lot as veterans to contribute to in our workplace. Then we think about our technical skills. I was at an investor pitch just a couple days ago, a guy named Aaron Doran who's starting a new bank in town. He was talking about the way that he has used cybersecurity as an experience as an intelligence officer in the Marines to launch a new business called Studio Bank in town. We also talk about our teamwork. I will never forget the feeling of having that Marine to my left and right, those who have swore the same oath, who have had the same training, who have the same passion for making a difference as I did. That's a feeling of confidence that I'll never forget. That's a culture that is very unique to the military and something that I think a lot in different organizations they strive for. And I know for me personally, going to a hospital, that's a big reason because I wanted this feeling again. I wanted to have those around me who had that same passion to make a difference. This idea to improvise, to adapt and overcome. For me, recently, just a couple days ago, many of you may be aware, Vanderbilt Medical Center, we recently went live with a new electronic health record system. So I apologize for any wait lines that we may have had in the last couple days if you've stopped by. But it's gone extremely well. But overnight, on Thursday of last week, we went from an old to a new record system across the entire medical center enterprise. And you can imagine in the midst of that, no matter how much planning that we have done, there's friction that's inherent in that, and there's uncertainty associated with it. One of the things that we did was staff our epicenter, our command center, with a lot of veterans because of this trait, this ability to adapt, improvise, to solve problems quickly in a fluid environment, and it's helped us to succeed. We talk about leadership. This is something that, transitioning from the military, I came to appreciate it. We take it for granted sometimes, this idea that we eat last and we're the first over that hill. And it is the feeling of leading by example is something that's uncommon, but it is an expectation in the military. This idea of ownership, and I want to emphasize this, this quote, the idea of taking responsibility for our team. I remember the quote that's very common in the military: we're responsible for everything that our team does or fails to do. And especially when we fail, because we will. And that's one of the things we get very close, and we know ourselves extremely well in the military because we've met that point of failure. That ability to take ownership, it has a trickle-down effect within an organization. At every level, those are able to take that same ownership and to help solve problems at every level within the organization is something that we can't take for granted. As we look at some of the qualities that our veterans have, like I said, our employers appreciate that, the intangible qualities, and there's been surveys that show just how those have played out in the workplace in a meaningful way. But want to note, in the last 2 decades, and this was some quotes from an article in the New York Times, that we have, as veterans, have taken on a unique burden. It actually comes to less than 0.5% of the U.S. population are active duty, and further and further, unless you have served or unless you have a family member who has served, it's hard to understand some of the unique qualities there, as well as unique experience that some of these veterans have gone through. That has not been the case necessarily of some generations because, again, it has been a larger portion of the population. All that to say, it has led to some wounds of war, and these are pretty stark numbers provided by our Veterans Affairs. The fact that 1 in 5 of our veterans will deal with some type of post-traumatic stress. Unfortunately, less than half of those will go through some type of treatment. There's a lot of reasons for that we can talk about, but we've also dealt with a very important number down at the bottom. We lose 22 veterans every day to suicide. But there's hope in this, and I want to focus on not only where this has come from, but also to know that we have a role to play in helping to bring resolution. We are a community, and to know that what I was, one of the reasons that I was called to behavioral health in the first place was because of my experiences in working with veterans, particularly actually in the recruiting front, when they've transitioned from that team that they know into a more isolated environment. And that's what we find more and more, is this feeling of isolation after we've been part of a culture that is inherently high touch. We get taught how to tie our shoes left over right. We get taught, we get safety briefs before we go on a long weekend. And as we gripe about it in the military service, it's a culture that we're very familiar with and that we love and we cherish, and the fact that we care about each other in a different way. This type of culture is something that I think a lot of times we miss when we transition to the civilian workplace, and can lead to isolation if we don't find that same passion and drive and that purpose that we know so well in the military service. And in one of my first roles as a hospital CEO, we had an opportunity down in Tampa to work closely with the MacDill Air Force Base, which is the headquarters for the Central Command and Special Operations Command for the military. And they had a need to be able to work with active duty service members who were dealing with some of this post-traumatic stress, not to get out of the service, but to refit and get ready to go back out. And so we brought in some veterans because we know uniquely that sometimes need that shared experience to help break down some of the barriers and the walls that we can create to getting the treatment that we need. We brought in a veteran psychiatrist that came in from Harvard and was teaching cognitive processing therapy, and we brought together some integrative medicine, the ability to bring yoga and different forms of therapy, accelerated resolution therapy and prolonged exposure therapy. And what we found is there's no silver bullet, but I'll tell you that there was an incredible impact in the program. The core program that we launched became nationally recognized, not necessarily because of one person or one treatment method. Honestly, one of the biggest impacts was that we did physical training with our veterans and military service members in the morning. That feeling of camaraderie, that teamwork that was built in the midst of physical training, something you would not expect in a treatment facility, but something that those veterans know so well, and that brotherhood, that feeling of resonance actually was fostered again, and then they could embrace some of the important processing that needed to occur from some of the events. And again, there is no perfect solution, but that integrative approach and the importance of that culture and teamwork and the bonds are critical. And I wanted to share this idea of post-traumatic growth, the ability to use that challenge and that vulnerability as a source of strength for others is critical, particularly among veterans, because of that barrier that can happen because of that shared experience. And I wanted to highlight the actions of one of my brothers, Eric McElvaney, who served as a mobile assault platoon commander alongside me in Weapons Company in 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines. And I wanted to share a little bit about his story because of the way that he has brought a challenge into an incredible source of strength for many across the nation.
Eric McElvaney is a Marine who stepped on an IED in Afghanistan just 15 months ago, lost his right leg below the knee. So now he's going to compete in the Ironman triathlon in Kona, Hawaii.
I look down and I'm missing my right leg below the knee. My left leg is all bandaged up. My left arm's bandaged up. I got IVs in me. I couldn't sit up on my own. I was in a lot of pain. I was in pretty bad shape, but I was alive. What defines our character isn't the challenge that we're facing, but it's how we step up to the plate and how we handle those challenges. I just think it's so important to set your goals high because when I look back on my life, anything that I consider an accomplishment was something that I had to work hard for. I knew that I could do a 5K. I could have probably threw crutches on and did a 5K, but at Ironman, man, I didn't know if I was ever going to be able to do that. There's always that easy way of doing something and then the hard path, and I've just realized that they don't meet in the same place, and that hard path, that's what's going to turn into an accomplishment. You know, I'm almost blessed to have this opportunity to live it and to share it. This is who I am now. My new favorite restaurant is IHOP, which is critical. I run triathlon. I'm dad. I'm coach. I'm a husband. I'm a student. You know, I'm that. This is who I am. This is my situation. These are my circumstances, and I love them, and I wouldn't change them. Whatever good events or decisions or bad events or decisions you made in the past to get you to where you are, like right now, you know, your situation is your situation, and everyone's is different. So we're all alike, that we all have challenges, but we're all different, that we all have our own lives, and man, I say just own it.
I hope he's as much inspiration to you as he is to me. But this is our veterans. These are those who love that challenge, that sense. 1 year after having a surgery to lose his leg, he's running an Ironman. Our company commander, just minutes after his surgery, said, when are you running your first marathon? And he said, I can't believe he said that, but he knew how to inspire Eric. And I think our veterans sometimes are made of something different, and that challenge, that call to action, and again, that renewed sense of purpose is something that we all strive for. And so I just want to thank you for helping to engage our veterans in that way, to be able to use your source of strength, those vulnerabilities, and not being afraid to be able to use them in the community in a unique way. I've seen courage over the past couple years in the hospital setting that it has been nothing short of inspirational. The ability to embrace that vulnerability and to understand and work through it in a way that ends up inspiring others. It is something that we all need and something that will be critical for our success going forward as a community. I want to thank you for your leadership, for the way that you continue to make a difference in this place and in the city of Nashville. I hope you all have a great Veterans Day. Thank you for your service, and happy birthday to Marines. Thanks.
Good morning. My name is Cal Bryan, and I'm a senior here at MBA. On behalf of all of us at MBA, we'd like to thank you for coming. We'd like to thank Major Norton for his words. And to all the veterans here, we'd like to thank you for your selfless sacrifice and service to our nation. And this concludes our ceremony this morning. Thank you again for coming.